Before I introduce our speaker, Barbara has a poem that she found that's relevant to our talk today.
This is from a little book of poems I wrote back. Oh, yeah, that's better. Better? Okay. A little book of poems I wrote in 2010 after the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And just the thought of those millions of gallons of oil contaminating it, I was heartbroken. And one morning I got up and these poems just pulled out of me. And this is the first poem in the book. And it's called Human. And when I heard about Carmen's topic, I thought, well, I have this poem called Human, and I think it might be relevant. So I'll just read this little poem. What is it that makes us human? Is it a bigger brain, walking upright, language, or is it the ability to care for each other, for beauty, for the earth?
Thank you. Carmen Rivera. Carmen has been a member of our community, CUUC, in the local area for 24 years. She's been a UU for 50 years. Carmen was founder and president of a company called New Insights Incorporated. It's a human performance. She is a human performance development specialist, a certified professional coach, and a trained conflict resolution mediator. She retired in 2023 after 56 years of facilitating adult learning, effective workshops, and seminars on critical interpersonal skills, such as effective communication, conflict resolution, leadership, team building, management, negotiations, change, and transition. She also worked on valuing workforce diversity and sexual harassment prevention. Over 50,000 participants have attended her workshops from all over the United States and all over the world. They have included CEOs, executives, managers, supervisors, technical and support staff from national organizations, federal government agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Carmen earned her BA in sociology and psychology at the University of Maryland and her Master's of Education in Guidance and Counseling at Bowie State College. She is a wonderful, beloved member of our community. Please welcome Carmen Rivera.
Thank you so much, Rosa. Thanks. For centuries, humans have been asking, what makes us human? What does it mean to be a human being? Maybe you've even asked yourself that question. What makes me different from other forms of life? And now, with the rise of artificial intelligence, a more recent question can be, how are we different from AI? In the 2025 Oscar winner of short film, I'm Not a Robot, and I recently saw this, the main character, Lara, repeatedly fails as she's working on her computer, the CAPTCHA test. I don't know if you know, when you're writing and it says, are you a robot? And you have to look at some, well, she did it several times and keep failing it. And by the way, CAPTCHA stands for, and I just learned this one, completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. That's what it stands for. So here she is, she's a music producer, she's doing her work, and all of a sudden the screen stops and asks her to, to find the car or whatever it is. She does it several times and she fails. And now she questions, am I a robot? So that was, I thought, fascinating. There's also a Apple TV show called Pluribus. I don't know if anyone has seen that, but this one is a mysterious virus creates a worldwide collective consciousness, making everyone peaceful and content. But there's a small group, including the protagonist, Carol, that remains individual and resisting and is forcing her to confront her own unhappiness and the meaning of human existence. So with AI and just with who we are, we wonder, who are we? What is it that makes us human? This is an eternal question, which we're going to talk about in the next 15, 20 minutes. So back in the 5th century BCE, before Socrates and Plato, the Greek philosopher and sophist Protagoras put forth the theory of relativism, if I can pronounce that correctly. But bottom line is, reality is what we make it to be. That was his theory. Truth is relative. Now, this was revolutionary and contrary to the dominant thoughts of the time, because the universe was something that's just objective, outside of human influence. There's reality and then there is us. And here it is, Protagoras is proposing that human consciousness creates our reality. So how does this theory of relativism relate to what makes us human? For me, it means that we can choose how we show up in life. We can choose how to be human in the world. Now, there are many ways that we can show that we're human in the world. I mean, besides taking a test or battling a collective beehive consciousness. But what I'd like to do with you is share what I think are 5 essential ways of being human. The first one is self-awareness. We know that we exist. We have consciousness. We are aware of ourselves. Right? We know we exist. We're aware of ourselves. But sometimes we are unconscious of our consciousness. We walk through life asleep, just moving and doing things out of habit, without thinking about it. We're on automatic. We go from one place to the other, and how did I get there? Well, I don't know. I guess I was an automatic. Or a lot of things that we do that we have no idea that we're doing. So while we're conscious, sentient beings, there are times we would just walk through life like a sleepwalker. So to be human means not only that you know that you exist, but you know you exist in the present, in the now. You are aware of where you are at the moment, what's going on in your life in this second. Because in the present, that's where life happens. The past is important. It could shape you, your childhood, where you went to school, whether you went to school, whatever, your job experiences. That helps decide who you are. But don't let the past enslave you or define you. Cherish your past, but live in the present. The future can inspire you. It can motivate you. You know, you can dream of where you want to be in so many years or what you want to do after a certain situation. So you want to let the future guide you, but don't let it trap you. You want to live in the now, in the present. Another aspect of self-awareness, besides knowing not only that you exist, but that you exist in the now and that you are aware of the present, is being mindful of who you are. Now, this is different than what you are. So I want you to be, as living beings, we realize we have thoughts, we have feelings, we have values, there are strengths, there's all kinds of things that go on for us. And you can reinvent yourself from moment to moment. So don't let what you are, the role that you play in your life, wife, mother, grandmother, teacher, professor, lawyer, accountant, whatever it is, that is what you do. That's your role or roles that you have in your life. But who you are, your beliefs, your values, your essence, who you are that influences what you do, that is another part of self-awareness. Don't get caught up just in the roles that you play. Be aware of what's deep inside my core. What are my values that drive me? What is really important that is a constant thread no matter what I do, that I know is who I am? How am I showing up in life, in what I do? Self-awareness is knowing who you are in the moment and throughout your life. How do you show up in the world? So, how can you increase your self-awareness? By practicing mindfulness, being aware of every moment, breathing in every moment. This is where life is going on right now in this moment. This morning when you had breakfast, that's gone. Lunch is not here yet. We are here in this space together, and that's all there is right now. So being human means being awake and aware. That's one of the essential components, and characteristics of human. The second one of showing how we're human is compassion. And we've said that word already a couple of times this morning. So what do we mean by compassion? We'll have a couple of definitions. Deep awareness of the suffering of another, coupled with the wish to relieve it. That's one of the dictionary definitions. Deep awareness of the suffering of others, coupled with the wish to relieve it. Another dictionary definition is sympathy for the suffering of others, often including a desire to help. So these definitions suggest that compassion is about stopping the suffering of others. And I believe that it is that, but I would add it's more than that. It's a way of supporting others through their suffering, not just saying, oh, I wish it got better, or it's actually being present with the person through their pain and helping them get through that pain, not just observing the pain and say, oh, I'm so sorry. It's having the empathy, the involvement with someone else's pain. You're not necessarily feeling the pain. You understand the pain. You are willing to take action to help them move through the pain, because a lot of times people are in such deep pain, they do not know how to get out of it. So empathy is part of compassion. I like this definition by Thomas Merton, who was a Roman Catholic monk. Compassion is the keen awareness of the interdependence of all things. We're all connected, but we're still individuals, but we are there to support each other. So when you're in empathy, the analogy I make, when you're in compassion, and empathy is part of that compassion, it's like you see somebody in quicksand, and if you jump in to get them out, you're going to both flail and go in. And that's what sometimes people do, where they're in sympathy. They're with the person, feeling the same feeling that they're feeling. But then if both of them are feeling the grief, nobody can take any action or can see a way out or a path. So you don't want to go into sympathy, into going exactly where they are. You want to you see the person in the quicksand, and you throw them a lifeline and you pull them out. So empathy is acknowledging the pain, the grief for what's going on, but then helping them move through that so they can survive, they can live. So you help them out of the quicksand because you are outside looking in, but taking action. So it is dealing, when you're with compassion, you're there with an open heart. You're there with an open mind. It allows us to see other people's lives from a place of non-judgment. You can't have compassion and be judging the other person. Because as soon as you start judging them, you're going to stop caring. You're going to put yourself in a different place above them, and you won't be able to be with them. So empathy is part of compassion, helping the other person through their grief, through their pain. It means that we can hold the space open for the other person to be, to exist. And this is hard. Our tendency is to judge constantly. I know, I do it all the time. You can ask Fernando. So it's hard to open up the space to let the other person be who they are and help them through whatever they're going through so that you can be together. So there's the interdependence. That is different from dependence. You're separate but connected. Okay. So compassion, being human, means living in compassion with others. So that's the second major essential component, I think, of being human. You all with me so far? Okay. Third way that we could show that we're human is connection. As humans, one of the greatest needs that we have is to develop a sense of connection, of community. I mean, we've talked about community here all the time. It's even the name of our church, community. So we have a sense of connection with another, to belong. And this is a real strong human characteristic. We don't want to be alone. Now, yes, there are those of us who are more introverted, who don't necessarily want to chit-chat, who don't necessarily want to share everything with everybody else, who like their privacy. But bottom line, even if a person is a very much, quote, introvert or an extrovert, all of us have the same need. We want to belong to something bigger than ourselves, to another person. We want to connect. We are tribal creatures. What are our tribes? Families, churches, schools, communities. The person who completely lives alone is usually, we feel like there's something wrong with them. We are always, it is so strong that teenagers or people who are at risk will join groups that are detrimental for them, toxic, because they rather belong to a group than be alone. They'd rather belong to a gang than not belong at all. That is how strong the drive for community is within the human being. So connection is the third essential component of being human. We have to develop relationships with others. And now we're doing it through social media, and that seems to be a major, and sometimes, like any other new technology or way, there are pitfalls in that. But the idea is, how can we connect either in person, social media, in whatever way, so that we feel that we're part of a group, part of a tribe that loves us, or a tribe that accepts us. Okay, so connection. What is it that makes us find a connection? When we find some commonality with another person, when the values are the same, maybe the politics, maybe the activities, maybe playing mahjong, like I do every once in a while. So the connections we are with another person is a way to help us feeling that we belong to a group, to a community. So we learn this from the very time we're born. A baby is held, talked to, the baby responds, the baby feels belongs, comforted. There've been studies that when humans are not held from the time they're born, they have very, I forgot the name of it, but they have a condition that doesn't allow them to connect with another person. There was, I can't remember the years, but there was a time when a lot of European kids were being brought over to the United States for adoption because they had been in orphanages where they just bottle fed them, you know, right in the crib. There were so many of them that the caretakers did not pick them up. So they were basically left alone. So they were adopted by lots of Americans. And it turned out a lot of these kids could not bond with their families. They just could not. They were actually, in some cases, aggressive. They had not learned how to bond, and that being such an essential part of who we are. So a lot of the kids were, you know, taken back, so to speak. I don't, you know, returned, so to speak. I cannot take care of this kid. I don't know how to relate to them. All of this to say that belonging starts with connection, and connection is essential at all levels. So being human means having connections with others, knowing that you belong. The fourth way we can show being human is our ability to listen. You know, really listening to somebody else. You know, you may have heard other people, oh, you're not listening. And he goes, yes, I am. And then you parrot back what they said. That's not listening. That's just parroting back what they said. Listening is deeper. There is what in my career, and I've said I've trained thousands of people in communication in all walks of life throughout many different countries. When they come to my class, I know how to listen. You know, I don't need to have exercise or anything to listen. But people don't really listen. They don't understand what it means to listen. They think that if you hear something, they're listening. But there's a difference between hearing and listening. So here's a little quote that I've used that I think is really interesting. I know you believe, you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. Kind of a brain twister. I know you believe, you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. Okay? There's a difference. Hearing is the physiological process of the sound waves hitting your eardrums. You can hear noise, you can hear another language, and you can tune out. Hey, that's background noise. I'm going to tune out. I'm going to face what's in front of me. So hearing is a physiological component. And a lot of people think, well, just because they heard something, they're listening. Listening is more active. Listening is the mental process of understanding those sound waves. Hearing is automatic. Listening is learned. And most people haven't learned how to listen. They tune out people. If you're growing up and all you hear is negativity from your grown-ups around you, your parents, your teachers, oh, you're doing this. After a while, I'm not going to hear all that negative stuff. You start tuning out. You do not listen to those voices. It's kind of like Charlie Brown comic. Yeah, wah, 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 wah. We can do that. And we do that a lot because people don't want to hear what's going on around them. So listening is an active process. And when you first start doing it, you may get tired because you're using areas of your brain that you haven't used before. So listening is learned. In the classes that I taught on communication and listening, I had the participants, the attendees, spend hours practicing and working on listening. They were usually very surprised that they did not know how to do that as they went through it. Now, I'm not going to go through all the skills needed for an effective listener, but I will share a couple of points about that. First, listening is not about coming to an agreement. You don't have to agree with the speaker. Listening is about understanding the other person. Listening is about the other person, how they think, how they feel, is the pathway to connection. Think about that. If you have no communication with someone, you have no relationship. The level quality of your communication determines the level and quality of your relationship. You've got good communication, good relationship. Bad communication, bad relationship. No communication, no relationship. Listening is an essential component of communication, which is an essential component of connection and of belonging. So, a couple of the skills necessary to be able to be an effective listener. One is to be open to what the speakers say. That means I have to understand, I'm not going to judge them prematurely. Let me hear, even if it's completely different to what your belief or your values, it's like, who is this person? I have to understand who they are. So I have to listen to what they say without judgment. And that's really hard, I know, but it's doable. It gets easier like anything else. You go on an exercise or at the gym. First time you come home, you're in pain. Second time you're in pain. Eventually the pain is less and you get better and your muscles get stronger. The same thing with listening. You practice it, you get better at it as you go through it. So being open, keeping an open mind is essential for you to be able to listen. Two, another skill, pay attention to the nonverbals. Not just what the words, but their tone of voice. How do they say it? The volume. How is the speaker packaging the content of their message? Tone, volume, facial expressions, body language, all of that. How they package what they're saying. I can say things like, I painted my house yellow. I painted my house yellow. Very different message. So be aware of how you are coming across when you are speaking, and be aware of how they are coming across when you are listening. That's the bulk of the message. Actually, about 90% of the message is nonverbal. So pay attention to that. Then the third skill, and this is just as hard as all the others, is to paraphrase. Put it in your own words. I heard you say, but this is my understanding of. You paraphrase. In other words, you let them know what you took from their message. And this is essential when there's conflict going on, which is when it's hardest, because we're fighting, quote to speak. We're saying you're wrong and I'm right, and this is my, the way we should. That's when paraphrasing is most essential. As a conflict resolution mediator, I used to do that in Northern Virginia at the Fairfax County Courthouse. People could have their disputes mediated by a mediator. I was one of them, or adjudicated by a judge. And some people decided to go to the judge, but the ones who come to mediation, we went to a room. Both parties would sit kind of across the table from each other, but I would usually put them like at angles, not completely across, because that signals conflict, even though they are in conflict. So I put them one on one side and the one on the other side, kind of, diagonally. And the rules were we listen to each other. So the person who has the most energy, right? The one who was angry, which is the person who was suing the other person, and we said small claims court. So one person who's suing is like, I'm right, I want my money, or I want this to be, So that person is the one who speaks first, because you have so much energy that you're not going to hear the other person. So allow the person who had the most energy, the anger, the person who was suing, to tell their story, and have the other person just listen. And then and if they interrupt, I wouldn't let them interrupt. And then when the person who was finished the long story, then I would ask the person who was listening, what did they say? What did you hear? What's their main point? And they would have to tell what they heard before then they got to tell their story, and the other person would tell what did you hear? So help them understand each other instead of deciding who's right and who's wrong. Does that make sense? And in fights, in arguments, we don't do that. We just yell at each other. We talk at each other. We need to talk with each other. We need to listen with an open mind, with an open heart to reach understanding. It does not mean that you come to an agreement, but you understand the other person's point of view, and you can part with understanding. And one of people sometimes says, oh, well, then that means we agree to disagree. I personally do not like that term because it says, we've agreed that you are wrong. Usually when you say, I agree to disagree, yes, you've decided that person doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm just going to walk away. You know, that's kind of a code for I don't believe you and I don't agree with you. So the idea is we understand each other. We may not agree, but we understand where we're coming. Okay. So listening. Carl Rogers, who is the founder of humanistic psychology, some of you may know that name, has a quote that I think captures some of our reluctance to listen. I'm afraid to listen because if I listen, I might understand and be changed by that understanding. And change is hard. I may change my mind after I hear what you have to say. Oh no, I don't want to hear that. I saw that in my classes too. I would get people to have conversations with each other about topics that they disagreed. So they would choose a topic, whatever it was. Could be something as kind of as really not as bad as maybe they had different loyalties to different football teams, or they had different opinions about films or books, or they could talk about politics, which was a little bit more heated. But they could choose, and then their point was to understand each other. And the interesting thing, after the end of those exercises, most of the people, I mean, high percentage, like maybe one would not, they would come to find out, hey, the other person not so bad, and they had some points that I hadn't thought about, so they were closer to each other and to an agreement that they were before they went through the exercise. So I'm afraid to listen because if I listen, I might understand and be changed by that understanding. We need to grow. Differences is what makes us grow. Diversity is what makes us grow. All right. Being human means being able to listen. And the fifth and last characteristic I think is essential for being human is having a sense of purpose. Do you know your life's purpose? Do you know what drives you, what motivates you in your life? Why are you here? Why do you still exist? Why are we still alive? What's your purpose? Having a sense of purpose helps us create a life of meaning. Whatever meaning means to you, whether it means meaningful work or meaningful relationship, a better handle on life, whatever. The meaning is unique and individual to each of us. It is fulfilled only by us alone. So what is your life's purpose? Viktor Frankl, you may have heard about him, an Australian neurologist and psychiatrist. Remember, he was incarcerated in Nazi concentration camp for a long time. He wrote in 1946 in that groundbreaking book, Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote that man's search for meaning is the primary motivation of life. You stop and think about it. If the person who has a reason to exist exists and lives, people who do not have connections or reason for existence are more a danger for suicide. Okay. So his work was based on this long time prisoner in the concentration, and he discovered this idea of purpose. And now we consider that to be self-evident, but he was the one who really thought humans need a purpose, a meaning in life in order to continue living. I mean, he was under the most horrible conditions. And what was his purpose? He felt he had another book within him. I mean, so it wasn't a huge life, but it was enough for him to keep him alive because he still felt there's still a book I need to write that's within me, and I have to live in order to write this book. So he found finding meaning gives us a reason to continue living. What is your purpose? Why are you here? Why do you still exist? What meaning do you have for your life? Meaning is what ties lives together so it makes sense. It's how we connect the dots. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It could be, I have to feed the dogs. It could be, I have company coming, or I'm going to see my grandchildren, whatever it is. Or I'm writing a book, or I need to go and work at the charity, whatever it is. Find your meaning, your purpose, and look for the thread of how that shows up in your life. Robert Byrne, he's author, instructor, and he was a pool player, made into the Billards Hall of Fame. I did not know that existed, but there's a Billards Hall of Fame. He said, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. It is not something you invent or force or manipulate. It is something you come to realize and recognize within yourself. During the coaching, I used to do coaching one-on-one. And one of the activities that I would work with my coachee is for them to have a purpose, for them to look for their purpose. Where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, next day? To start looking at how their life has meaning for them and to like for that purpose. Some people find purpose early in life. Others, it takes years. Others, it's not till like you're 80, and then you find a purpose. Okay. Our purpose may change over time also. Our purpose when we were 13 may be different than when we're 33 or 53. George Carlin, the comedian, he's how I always thought he had words of wisdom. He said, just when I discovered the meaning of life, it changed. So be aware. Be aware. Keep, check in on with yourself. Why am I here? What's my meaning? What's my purpose? Discovering your life purpose will help you heal your suffering and facilitate the transitions of your life's journey. Otherwise it's just random acts. And people who just go through life, asleep, just doing things out of habit, without any purpose, are usually pretty, I would say, not happy. They're unwell. They're also get sick, physically sick, because our mind and our body are connected. So how we feel, our emotions, our mind, our psychology, all of that is all connected. So it shows up in our physicality, so to speak. So being human means living with purpose, living a life of meaning. So to summarize, here are the 5 ways that I think are essential for us to show that we're human. Being human means having self-awareness. Being human means having and showing compassion. Being human means feeling connection. Being human means having the ability to listen. And being human means living with purpose. Those are the 5 essential. I'd like to leave you with some words that you can say every morning to guide you through the day. And they're from the Dalai Lama. Today, I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all of my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as you can. Thank you.